Hello and welcome to Two Indoor Gaming, and this is a little tutorial on the electrical functions that have come into Creativerse. Not super advanced stuff, I just want to keep it basic. I know that Creativerse have provided a video introducing the electrics, but I didn't find it particularly easy to follow myself. So I'm going to try and hopefully succeed in giving something that's a little more beginner friendly. So I'll run over the basics of what's new in the update and how to use it and what it might actually be used for, because that was one thing I couldn't work out. Well, why is this circuit helpful and why not? Now the first thing I just want to point out, I'm not actually playing as Two Indoor. I'm using my wife's Steam account, and that's because I wanted a free account. So everything I'm doing here, I'll just show you. See, I've still got it's telling me upgrade. I'm just using a basic account just so you can be assured that everything I'm doing here, every single player will have access to. None of this is a pro feature. Okay, so you'll be able to do whatever it is I'm doing in this tutorial. If it gets a bit long, I might split it and release it as two separate videos. That is actually quite likely to happen, just trying to get through all of the different options. So the first thing is, how do you get it started? To do anything with this, you're going to need the special glove. Okay, you just have a look over here. This glove unlocks, you'll find it under the tools, the wiring tool, will unlock the moment that you harvest your first bit of coal. Okay, it's not that expensive, some stone rods, a bit of magnetite, and a little bit of coal, so it's relatively easy to obtain once you get to that level of stone mining cell and you're in and processing and all of that stuff. So that you've got to get a little bit into it before you can do anything. You craft the wiring tool, and it will give you access to a few things like the LED blocks, which is a new block, and a couple of your basic sort of switches, delay gate, this sort of thing. Yeah, your switches and your pressure plates. And the switch and the pressure plate represent your basic activation methods. So if you think of a switch, it's just like a light switch, on, off, on, off. It's either got a true or a false position. And if you have a look over here, when you got your mining tool started, it's going to give you this little screen here, and that's going to give you the information you need. So I'm pointing at this switch. It's telling me it's not connected to anything. Its state is false. So false, when you see that, just means off. Okay, it's not powering it in any way, and it is possible for it to interact with things. It's not a dud. And so if I click on a hotspot to start wiring, that's these things, and we'll get into that. And it's got a couple of new little controls. K for breaking all links. If you just made a mistake, you want to start again, you point at it, press K, and it'll delete everything you've changed. N gets into a few more of the details. And V means sometimes you've got lots of things wired up, you can't even see. You can't see what you're doing. So it's good to hide the connections so you don't get confused. Just your visuals don't get confused. It doesn't turn them off, it just turns off the visual representation, the blue lines. If you look over here, I've got something going here. See those blue lines? It just turns those off so you can't see them. It doesn't just hides them, it doesn't turn them off. Okay, so what can you power? There are a lot of different things in Creativerse that you can interact with, but unless it's something that it's either on or it's off, such as lights or beacons or this sort of thing, you can't use electricity with it. So if I go up to this light over here, see how it's giving me a little white box? That means I can do something with it. But if I point at a chest, there's nothing there. It's not usable with electrics because you've got to do something after it's activated. After you open it, there's more interactions required, and so a simple electrical on-off is not going to be helpful to you. So that also goes with things like processing, cooking station, your teleports. It does work for fans that lift and push because that is an on-off function. Doors definitely open or closed, so you get that idea. That's where it's going to be useful. I'm missing a hole there. So you've got a switch like a light switch on off, or you've got a pressure plate. which is simply as long as you're on the plate, it will be sending a signal, an on signal. Or a true signal, I guess. As soon as you hop off it, it changes to false. So if you can imagine these lines, these connections between them as like a power surge, that helps me visualize it. So as long as you're on the pressure plate, it's going to send a surge down that power line. And as soon as you hop off, it's going to stop sending that power surge for you. And with the switches, they're very simple. Ooh, this is a problem. That pig is probably going to come over and get me at some point. So with that switch on, off, and if I have a look inside, it's very simple instruction. I can change the name, but at the moment there's a bug they do know about. You won't be able to see it when you point at it. But this here sends points, so it's going to send a signal. It can't receive a signal, it can only send an electrical surge, right? And you can interact or not. So just as, where are we? Give me the tooltip. Okay, if enabled, this device will allow manual interaction by players. Okay, so it can be changed, i.e. switching it on and off. Okay, so you've got here an output event name. Now there's two ways that you connect that out signal. You can do it manually. If you see that, if I highlight the send there, the hotspot, just left click on it, it's now going, okay, where are you going to connect? All I have to do is find another hotspot, a receive spot. See how it's a square rather than a circle. I just need to find that on another device. So if I want it on this beacon, there we go. So it's now connected. Now, and if you look at it, just represent that as an output and a sort of random number. I don't know, that might be coordinate to, I don't know exactly, but anyway. So that will go from this line to that line as such. Okay, and if actually before I do that, turn it on, you'll see it's just ignited it, turn it off, and it's off. Okay, that's as simple as it works, like a light switch. On, off. So it sends power, or I turn it off, it no longer sends power. Simple as that. Now it can power multiple spots, so I can go, just click the hotspot again, and then do it to another receiver, click, do it to another receiver. Oh, here he comes, like I said. Die you. Sorry about this, folks. Yep. I want that. Yeah, clear it out of the way. Yeah, see, because I'm not on a pro, I can't change this to peaceful creatures or whatever. I can't actually manipulate anything, so I've got to deal with the bad guys while I talk. So now we've hooked up all three, so now if we activate, just to right click on the switch, we've got all three light up, and there we go. All three switched off. That's the basic way of connecting. That's not always practical because you might be trying to power up 20 different lights, all around a massive vault or something. And doing those line things is very tedious. So there is another way you can do it. So if I select my wiring tool, point at it, press K, and that's just going to wipe the links for me there. They're all gone. So it's not connected to anything. What I can do, I press the N key and I give a name to that output surge, and I will just simply call it switch 1. So this is the output from my first switch, so I'm going to call it switch 1, and now I've named that surge. All I have to do now is anything that can receive, I do the N thing as well. So you're saying receive. If I put in that same name, like so, bang, it gives me that line. So you can imagine you set up a switch, you give it a name, and then you place your lights wherever you want. As soon as you place it, you just put a receiving name in it, and it will automatically connect for you, just like so. And I can do that with as many things as I like. There's no limit to it. Anything that has that receiving name will respond to that energy surge. One thing to be careful of is this is case sensitive. Look, if I put a capital in there for this one and the others were all lowercase, if I put in a capital and save it, there's nothing. It's not connecting to anything. Do you see that? It is case sensitive. That's something that you need to keep in mind. I'll stop that. Okay, so you might want to have your own system where either everything's all uppercase or all lowercase. It'll probably save you a bit of grief. It's up to you. I'll stop doing that. Okay, so now see, all three are connected. I didn't have to click and then move over and re-click. I could do them all in one time. Just take that out and you'll notice it works exactly the same. So you've got those options. Obviously, if it's just one thing to one thing and they're reasonably close, you don't need to bother with names. Just use the hotspot linkage. It will be just fine. Okay, so there's your switch. One thing with switches, and I was watching Just Jen playing around with this, and she got a little annoyed because if you notice, on-off is basically from top to bottom. And when she was using this as a light switch, she's like, "Oh man!" I'll show you something. She's in America, and American light switches go from bottom to top. Now here in Australia, they do go from top to bottom, so I'm fine with this. I didn't even recognize it as a problem until I heard somebody else talk about it. But these are fully revolvable, so you can change it around so that it goes the way you want it to go, basically. So if I don't want bottom to top, I can just spin it around, or play around with it till it does what you want it to do. There we go. Now it's an American switch. Now by revolving it, I haven't broken the connections. The connections won't break unless you pick it up. Okay, revolving's fine. So now it's an American switch, bottom to top. Simple as that. That's important to people, the little aesthetics things. So just remember, your revolving tool is fully operational with this stuff and very helpful. Now, one good thing with the naming of the output flow is, if I decide actually this is totally in the wrong spot, I actually wanted that switch right up and on the block itself, right? I've lost all those connections because I picked it up, it's just gone back in the general pool. I've lost all the connections. Now these items though, still, select wiring tool, you'll be doing that a lot, going, oh. They still have the same notation. As soon as there's something telling them, as soon as there's an energy surge called switch 1, they'll receive it. There isn't one at the moment because I picked it up. But I can now rename this one. If I put in switch 1, it automatically links. So that's handy when you use the names. Obviously, if you're using just the hotspots, they'll disappear and you'll have to do them all again. But if you do the names, then that won't change for those items, and you can move around your switches and get it aesthetically pleasing or whatever it is you want out of it. Okay? So that's the switch. How does the pressure plate differ? I mean, in the same way, it's just an on-off function, but there is one main difference, and I'll just show you first. There you go, stand on the pressure plate. Oh, I haven't linked it yet. Okay, how about I just do that quickly? Let's link it to the door and the light, just for fun. Alright, okay, so now when I click, it sends out a pulse. Right. But as soon as I walk off it, you'll notice the pulse is gone, so it turns off again. Well, that's not very helpful. I'm gonna have trouble getting through the door if I'm not careful. Right. So keeping that in mind, if I look at the function options, there's another option here that the switch doesn't have, and that's reset delay. And all that is telling it after 3 seconds, all the way up to 10, but I'll say after 3 seconds, pop back up again, basically, reset the pressure plate. So if I do that, activate, and then I walk through, it will wait 3 seconds and then see it just pop back up, and with the energy pulse gone, the door closes again, and so does the light. Now mind you, these things I can fully interact with them with, even though they're wired, they're not locked. So I can still just open it the normal way. But that's sort of, the pressure plate's cool. Now obviously on this side, if you want, you'll need another pressure plate if that's what you want it to do. Right? So you'll need to do something about it. Oop, that's for later. Now you'll see over here I've got that one space away, and the reason why is that open door will actually trigger the pressure plate. Okay, so that can mess you up a little bit, so it's good to have that extra one space. But if you want a two-way door, you're going to need pressure plates on both sides, otherwise you're going to have to manually open the door from one way or the other. So that's probably going to be the most common use you're going to see for pressure plates, unless it's something to do with a trap or a game. You know, people set up little games and stuff. But for most of us, I think if we use a pressure plate, it'll be for a door. Now those will activate if you drop a little bag on them, or if a mob walks over them, or your pet. I don't know, it's limited to your pet or any mobs. I haven't actually tested that out. So that's the pressure plate and the switch in their most basic on connection to an actionable item. But then you get some other trickier things to interact with. And the first one of which is a delay gate. And what it does is pretty much summed up by its name. It will delay the pulse. If I have a look in here, we've got a delay like we had with the pressure plate, but instead of a reset delay, what this does is it basically means, in simple terms, if I send a power surge to the delay gate, it will hold on to the power for however long I've set the delay for before it sends it on. So if we do our little things here, I'll call this, whoop, spelling is helpful, switch 2. Right, so it will send out a pulse named switch 2, so we want that to go here, switch 2, but we'll send it on to lamp 1, okay, after 1.5 seconds, and then we go to the lamp. Like I said, you can use the hotspots in such a simple thing, it would be quick, but I'm just doing this. One thing is, when you use names, it's very easy then to go back and track where you may have misnamed something if it's not working the way you want it to work. So this one's got in and out. That's just receiving. This is just sending. But basically, here we go. We turn it on, it's sent the power here, it's holding on that for 1.5 seconds, and then it lights the lamp. Again, that will be something that we've used a lot, I think, for games and traps and things when that's really viable. In such a simple circuit, I don't think you're going to be using it that often unless you want, it's say you're activating from a distance, and so you want it to activate when you can have time to run closer to whatever the object is. Otherwise, if say you wanted lights to go on in sequence, then you might put delay gates in between every light, and if that was the case, I would put a second delay gate over here, or it doesn't actually have to be in sequence. I think visually it just helps you, but I would send this output, the lamp 1 power surge, I would have that, the second delay gate would receive that as well. So at the same time the lamp's being lit, the second delay gate will be receiving the power, held on for however long I want to delay it till, then I would link it to the next lamp and the next delay gate, and in that way I could get lights to go in sequence. And to sort of give you a little demonstration of that, I've set up these LED lights in that sort of delay sequence, where every gate, if I point in here, you'll see the lines. Every delay gate points to both the Oh, I just dropped something. How about we pick that up? So every delay gate links to both the delay gate above it and the LED light it wants to light, and that way it's going in sequence. So if I flip this switch right here, turn that off, you'll notice it's going in sequence. That's how you can use those delay gates in sequence. If there's quite possibly a simpler way to do it. I just don't know what it is. One problem I've had with this though, I'll turn it off. You'll notice it will turn it off in sequence in the same way, so that the power surge sort of false state travels through it. But for some reason, it seems it's cycling through. Now it should stop there, but it doesn't, and it actually cycles through and lights it up again. I don't get that, but I can go back through and manually turn that off for a demonstration I'll show you later. Now the good thing is with the wiring tool is you don't actually need a visual contact with the item you're interacting with. It'll actually see through other blocks. You just need to select the relevant area. So that's really good. You can hide away your switches or your relays and all that sort of thing, so you don't have them in your face all the time. So that's how a delay gate could, in sequence, could be very, very handy. Especially if, like, yeah, that effect, you know, you have a big room, they do it in the movies a lot, and you turn on the light and it lights up progressively through the room, just showing how cavernous it is. It unfolds. That can be a really cool effect, and that's one way you can do that. Or like I did over here, and it's probably a good time. I'll show you what the LEDs say. They stick out from a regular lamp in that you can change the colors on your standard RGB scale, so you can get, you know, all the different colors just by changing the coding of it. So that's why I've got obviously that rainbow representation, Roy G. Biv, going on there. Oh, don't you love it? I interact and it goes, oh, let's do something. Yeah. So I'm, you know, half the time I'm not sure, did I do that or is that a bug? Because I'm just not familiar with this sort of thing, you know. Turn off. Oh, I'm not jumping high enough. Okay, let's get the right angle here. So obviously, either they're going to make that easier or I'm going to learn more so that it doesn't happen in future. Okay, so that's the LEDs. All your RGB codes will set that up for you. Next, we have, okay, looking at the time, I might make this the last one I show for the first video, and then I'll come back and do some more in a second video, just looking at the recording length. So this one is an inverter gate. What does that mean? It simply means it will switch from true to false, but opposite to the power surge. It will switch your power surge, it will switch your power surge from true to false or false to true. It's just flipping it. Okay, so if I connect this with this, and then I connect the send to this receive. Okay, when I turn this on, right, this inverter is going to change the signal to off. That's why this lamp didn't show up. Okay, it's because this on gets flipped to off. But if I turn this off, now the lamp lights up. So it just swaps the flow for you. And it just changes the opposite. Now, how is that helpful exactly? Well, in more complex circuits, I'm sure people find lots of reasons why that's a good idea. It'll turn one thing on. If I change this lamp, where are we? Change this lamp's receiver to lamp 2. Okay. What am I doing? Why even bother? I'll just do this. I'll just link the receive to the send point again. There we go. So it's now linking. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. Okay, let's scrap that. Now, if I link this directly to the switch, that's what I want to do. Now, we're going to have these two lights are going to alternate because with the direct current, that's on. That's on for this one, but this has inverted the signal to make it off for that one. So the lights switch around like so. So that can be a handy representation of whatever you want, a binary state. So let's say you have created a toilet in your massive Creativerse build. Well, this could be one way to signify whether it's occupied or not. Red light means somebody's in here. Green light means you're free to use the convenience. But you get the point. Okay, so that can be a binary representation there with the inverter just by adding that into the loop. If you've got two outputs, one is going to be on and one's going to be off every time. Okay, I'm just going to swap those around. Another way I found that's quite useful with the inverter gate is the way that it can swap states with an input. It doesn't make a lot of sense in a way. If I want to create a flashing light, I need to be sending it a message that says, now you're on, now you're off, now you're on, now you're off, right? But a general switch can only send one message, on, you're on, okay? But if I put an inverter in a loop, then I can go on and then off and then off, and then, you know, it can swap around. So with that in mind, to demonstrate it, I've set up over here a very basic visual representation of the TARDIS. Now, if you watch Doctor Who, he has a box that he travels around in time in, and when he activates it, there's a light on top that flashes on and off, and he gets a lovely sound effect, which I'm not going to try to imitate right now. So I want to create that effect in my build. I want it constantly blinking. Now, if I just have a switch, then I've got to stand next to it and turn it on and turn it off and turn it on and turn it off. Obviously, that is not a feasible thing. But by setting up a switch, sending it to an inverter, and then having the inverter loop through a delay, I can achieve that effect. So let's see if we can make it work. I'll switch it on here. Wait, now I've got it on a delay of 3 seconds. Now it's on. The first message it sent was false, of course, because it's an inverter, and then it sent a positive. So it's going on a 3-second delay, on, off, on, off. So I've basically sent the pulse over there, and it's now activated a loop. Unfortunately, that switch cannot deactivate it because the loop is having a constant message to itself. So here we are, sent the power surge over to this inverter. It's sending a simultaneous message to the lamp on top and a delay switch. Got to get in a bit closer. Alright, so the inverter receives TARDIS 1, sends TARDIS 2. So I send it to the delay gate with TARDIS 2, waits 3 seconds, and then it sends a new pulse to the inverter. And that just creates the loop. As soon as it sends a new pulse, it goes okay, it inverts to either off or on, sends that message to the lamp as well. Okay, you need to turn off. And then 3 seconds later, it'll get another message saying, now you need to turn on. And then 3 seconds later, it'll send another message, now you need to turn off. So it just created that constant loop. Right now, though, that is now permanent. So if I go back over to the little switch here and turn it off, it won't stop the process. It's like it's sent the pulse over there. Now the pulse will eternally go through that loop. And the only way to stop it is to actually take one of those elements out, either deleting the words or physically removing the component. But there you go, we've got a flashing light, a permanent flashing light there, using that inverter to switch it from on off, on to off, on to off. It only needs that one pulse to change it. Okay, So that's another use for it. Very simple, creating that eternal loop with a delay gate. If I had no delay, it would basically constantly flicker. So that's it for part 1, or maybe we say Electronics 101, and then we'll come back for Electronics 102. If you have any questions or tips for me, I'm really not that good at this sort of stuff. I'm just trying to get some basic understanding so that we can all enjoy these features. So yeah, please leave a comment. Any questions, any advice, it's all gratefully received. I'll see you again in part 2 of this series.